What's going on, everybody? We're back here today with another fantasy football video. Today we're going to be talking about the week 1 rankings for 2022-2023. Before we get into the video, please do leave a like, comment, subscribe, especially if this video helped you out. Let's start off with quarterbacks. So we have the usual suspects on top: Lamar, Mahomes. I have Josh Allen a little bit lower this week. I do think by the end of the year he will be the QB1. Just this week he has a little bit of a tougher matchup, I would say. Justin Herbert as well. I don't think he has a tougher matchup. I just believe that Russell Wilson, Jalen Hurts, and Mahomes, as well as Lamar, all just have amazing matchups this week. This week is more of a revenge game kind of week, like Russell Wilson playing his old team in Seattle. I really think Russell is going to try to show out. I know he has Courtland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy as his number 1 and 2 wide receivers. I'm not too clear on who is the number 1 and number 2 yet. I give the edge to Courtland Sutton, but if Russell Wilson can develop a rapport with Jerry Jeudy, it's not out of the realm to see him take over as wide receiver 1. I still give the edge to Sutton for now. Kyler Murray, I have a little bit lower than others. Reason being, the first 6 weeks of the season, he has to play without DeAndre Hopkins. He does gain Hollywood Brown, but I don't think that really makes up for Hopkins. He's going to have a great end to the year, though, with Hopkins and Brown both playing, so that's going to be good to see. But for now, I have him a little bit lower. Another revenge game is Baker Mayfield versus Cleveland. Knowing Baker, he's going to want to go off this week, especially to rub it in Cleveland's face. This is what you missed out on. He does have CMC to give those check down passes to. Robbie Anderson's there. So Baker could be in line for a big game. I don't really see him coming above top 15-ish though. So he's not really fantasy relevant, but it was just nice to mention. That's it for the quarterbacks. It's pretty straightforward for these guys. I feel like the top 15 will always be somewhat like this in some order. Moving on to running backs, we have a lot of players here. So Jonathan Taylor, I have number 1, and Derrick Henry. I have them outscoring Eckler and McCaffrey this week, in standard formats at least. Derrick Henry, King Henry, rushing for a lot of yards. McCaffrey, I do think the injury concerns are there, but if he plays the entire season, he will undoubtedly be the number 1 running back. He'll probably be the number 1 fantasy player. It just all comes down to his health. Other players in standard format that I see really going off this week are Nick Chubb against Carolina, Zeke, Saquon, and Alvin Kamara. I feel like this season they had kind of disappointing seasons last year, at least somewhat disappointing in comparison to what they can do. And I feel like this year they're all going to have a comeback year. It's really time for them to really show that they haven't really lost their step. Moving on, Cam Akers is a player that I'm shying away from in most leagues. I don't see the fascination with him. I think he's really overrated. Most of the time, his backup is outperforming him. So Cam Akers, I'm not big on at all. J.K. Dobbins, he might not even play week 1. And if he doesn't, Mike Davis would get inserted, as well as Kenyon Drake, into the top 50. They're going to split the carries. And they did just sign Kenyon Drake, so he might get a little bit less right off the bat. But J.K. Dobbins, it really comes down to his availability. Moving down to Ken Walker. A little bit of the same story here. Ken Walker and Rashad Penny. I believe I have Rashad Penny 28. So they have their running back by committee in Seattle. Ken Walker's looking like he's not going to play either, which obviously would move him out of the top 50 and probably throw in someone else. But if Ken Walker doesn't play, Rashad Penny's going to have a hell of a game. I could actually see him even sneaking into the top 20. I could see him doing better than Antonio Gibson, Travis Etienne, Breece Hall, all these guys. I could see him doing better than. Whenever he does play and he gets like the bulk load of carries, Rashad Penny always does dog. So this could be another good game for him. Can take advantage of the Ken Walker injury, and if he really does have pops off this week and then continues to pop off every game, he might just solidify that starting spot, at least for the year being, from Ken Walker, and just become that workhorse back. Let's move on to PPR leagues. So in PPR leagues, I have it a little bit differently. Austin Eckler I actually have outscoring both Taylor, McCaffrey, and Henry. That's really the only difference in the top 4. I would say. Actually, no, Derrick Henry's still 4. McCaffrey I have at 3 and Taylor at 2. Just because Eckler is going to have so many opportunities to catch the ball. McCaffrey would be higher. I just feel like I need a little bit more proof from him that he can play every week. But yeah, Eckler I expect to have a huge game. Moving down to someone like Joe Mixon, I feel like he's always in top 10 every single year, every single week. But he's just a consistent running back. Kamara, like I said earlier, I feel like he got a big bump here. Now, I think he moved up 2 spots from standard here just because of his pass catching ability. The same goes for Travis Etienne. I believe James Conner as well got a big bump just because of their ability to catch the ball. Especially if Kyler Murray needs some checkdowns, James Conner should get a lot of work here. And on the other hand, I have players like Nick Chubb, Aaron Jones, and Zeke falling out of the top 12, top 10, just because Chubb is a crazy workhorse back, but most of the pass catching plays go to Kareem Hunt, who's also phenomenal. So he takes a little bit of a hit here. Zeke, same thing. Tony Pollard, they've been raving about his pass catching ability, want to see him catch the ball a lot more. So I'm sure Pollard's going to get a lot of the third down options as well as like the passing plays. Moving on, let's see. I have Hines high up as well. Just like Tony Pollard, they rave about Nyheim Hines' passing catching ability. They want to take a little bit workload off Jonathan Taylor just to keep him healthy for all the entire year. So Nyheim Hines could get some light pass work and maybe could vulture a TD or 2 from Jonathan Taylor. A lot of the other, there's one more I wanted to talk about. Oh yeah, David Montgomery. I'm not completely sold on David Montgomery as of yet. I do think he's solid. He could become that workhorse back, and it could just be like the Chicago offense. But now, they're Justin Fields under center. It's kind of a new offense. David Montgomery still has the little adjustment period, but I do feel I'm not too sold on him yet, but I kind of have him high. It's kind of like a prove it kind of pick. I want him to kind of show that he can do it. Moving on to half PPR. The rankings here don't differentiate too much. Maybe one player moved just a little bit up, a little bit down. I am interested to see how Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon play out. I believe the coach said that he could see them both getting about 50 catches each, which is crazy to think of. 100 catches between your running backs. They don't have a lot of big playmaking ability outside of Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. I still give the rushing, the TDs, the goal line TDs to Aaron Jones, but I expect A.J. Dillon to get a lot of work in here and there as well. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they pair together. It could kind of be like that Mark Ingram Kamara when they both placed in the top 15. I think it was like 3-4. I think it might have been Kamara's rookie year or his second year. Elijah Mitchell is another running back I'm not completely sold on yet. Like he's a great talent, but the issue is Deebo Samuel gets a lot of the rushing touchdowns last year. I'm not sure exactly how many he had last year, but Deebo Samuel does get a lot of rushing work. So, and San Francisco is a power run offense, so it might not even affect Elijah Mitchell. But being an Elijah Mitchell owner and seeing Deebo Samuel run in for a touchdown would obviously be annoying. But yeah, the the half PPR rankings, they don't differentiate too much. But I will leave the link below for these rankings in the description, just in case you want to play around with it, see how your players are doing. Let's move to wide receiver, see where your players are ranked and everything like that. So wide receiver, I have Cooper Kupp, number 1. He's going to be the wide receiver 1 this year. I don't care about all the hype on Justin Jefferson, even Jamar Chase. I don't think neither one of them can really challenge Cooper Kupp. He had a crazy season last year. I don't expect him to have a similar season because it was pretty unheard of, but I do expect him to be the wide receiver 1 by the end of the year. Just speaking of Debo, just not too long ago, I have him ranked pretty higher here in the standard format, where the receptions don't really matter, obviously, just because of his rushing ability and rushing touchdown abilities. Moving on, Tyreek Hill. So Tyreek went from playing with Patrick Mahomes to Tua, and I mean, it's a fall off in QB, obviously, but a lot of Tyreek's yards last year were after the catch anyways, so I'm not too sure how he's going to fare with Tua. I feel like it might not really impact him as much as people are thinking. Tyreek did play with Alex Smith way back when Alex Smith was still the Kansas City quarterback, and Tyreek still dominated. So I think that might have been the year he actually broke out. He was doing everything. I think he did rushing touchdowns, punt returns, kickoff returns, and then he broke into superstar and they wanted to keep him healthy. So, but yeah, I don't think Tyreek in Miami is going to be a bad fit. I know a lot of people say Tua doesn't have a cannon and whatnot, but I think in preseason, there was the first play of the game, Tyreek Hill went straight, and Tua really bombed it out there, like 50 plus or 45 plus yards. So I'm not too worried. I think Tyreek's still gonna have a good year. Someone I am a little worried about though is Michael Thomas. I'm still not even sure if he's fully healthy yet. I know he missed, I think, all of last year or most of last year. He barely played in the last 2 years, and now he has to play with Jameis Winston, so he doesn't have that Drew Brees connection anymore. He has to adjust to the new game plan and everything going on. So Michael Thomas is another one of those prove it to me guys. But if he does come back fully healthy and can actually perform to how he was before, he's going to jump significantly, probably into the top 15 or 15 to definitely top 20 for sure. Maybe top 15 if he can perform even close to what he did before. Terry McLaurin was someone else I wanted to talk about. I have him at 15 here against the Jaguars. He's played with so many bad quarterbacks throughout his career, and he's still like showed out every year. Played phenomenally last year, and now this year he gets Carson Wentz as his quarterback. Again, not a great quarterback, but I think Carson Wentz is probably the best quarterback he's ever had. So I don't expect Terry's numbers to change, if at all. I think if anything, they'd probably be a little bit better, but that's another thing to keep an eye on. Moving on to PPR, this is where it gets really different for the wide receivers. PPR, I still have Cooper Kupp number 1. I think the top 6 hasn't really changed. No, top 5 really hasn't changed. It's the 6 and the 7 where Keenan Allen, Michael Pittman, and CeeDee Lamb really jump in here. Keenan Allen's been a reception machine over his career. His main concern is just injuries. Michael Pittman, however, he's going to have a crazy year in Indianapolis this year. Upgrading quarterback from Wentz to Matt Ryan, and he's clearly Matt Ryan's favorite target so far. And not just that, he had a pretty good end of the year last year, and he's going to be a PPR monster for Matt Ryan. I think I read somewhere Matt Ryan has, in the last 8 or 9 years, there hasn't been a season where he didn't have a top 12 wide receiver on his team. So I expect really big things from Michael Pittman. I think he might be top 10 wide receiver this year when it's all done. But honestly, I can't wait. Michael Pittman is someone I'm drafting, and I'm trying to draft in all of my fantasy leagues. Another one, Amon-Ra St. Brown, who I think is going to have a crazy season as well. Again, another player that ended the season on a high note. Now he gets to be the focal point of the There's still DeAndre Swift. He's the wide receiver 1, clear wide receiver 1. I believe he was wide receiver 1 last year too. But now I expect him to get a lot more passes thrown his way. Detroit was very run heavy last year, and the head coach said he wants to kind of throw more passes. So that can only benefit Amon-Ra St. Brown. So Brown is another player that I'm like targeting in most of my leagues, if not all. And I actually didn't even touch on CeeDee Lamb. After Amari Cooper got traded, there was so many targets, to go around, and CeeDee's gonna soak up most of them. Michael Gallup's injured for a while too, so CeeDee's gonna have a crazy start to the season. Dak Prescott's #1 receiving option, vertical threat, slant. He can do it all, and it's really time for him to really just show out this year. He's had good seasons, but he hasn't had that crazy breakout year yet, and this is the year for him. So let's move on to half PPR. Again, the rankings don't differ too much over here, but someone I did want to talk about was Adam Thielen. Pretty disappointing year last year. I do believe now Justin Jefferson, being the crazy threat that he is offensively, is going to draw in a lot of pressure, allowing Thielen to get a lot more softer coverages and getting open, kind of taking advantage of that slot role that he became famous for when Diggs was there. A lot of the pressure went to Diggs as the vertical threat, and Thielen kind of just killed every defense. So if Thielen can kind of get healthy again and just get back to that form, it's going to be a steal of a pick down here. There's also Juju, the #1 wide receiver for the Chiefs now. Well, the #1 wide receiver is basically Travis Kelce. I'm sure we could all agree on that. But Juju's going to be the #1 option for Mahomes, especially if Juju kind of plays in that slot role. He's going to have a lot of targets and receptions coming his way as well. Christian Kirk is another player who's going to become the wide receiver 1 for Trevor Lawrence with the Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence got a lot of new weapons this offseason. He gets Etienne back. He got Evan Ingram. He got Christian Kirk. Marvin Jones is still there. So he should be a lot more comfortable in that offense this year. Obviously, he has that year of experience now under his belt. I expect big things from Christian Kirk. Trevor Lawrence, I could see him having a good year. But let's see how the Jaguars offense really holds up. Let's go on to tight ends. So for tight ends, my rankings don't really differentiate a lot. I'm pretty sure in the top 15 or so, it's like the exact same order. It's more so down here where the rankings kind of shift a little bit, depending on touchdown dependent tight ends and actual tight ends that get involved in the offense but don't really generate touchdowns. So Mark Andrews #1 against the Jets, Kelce against the Cardinals, Kyle Pitts, who's is in line for a monster year. Who's Atlanta's other wide receiver? Drake London. Yeah, whatever the case is, Kyle Pitts is in line for a monster year. Even if Mariota is the quarterback, I think Kyle Pitts is gonna have a crazy year. I think the top 5 every week is basically gonna look in some variation of Mark Andrews, Kelce, Pitts, Waller, and Kittle. Maybe some weeks, depending on matchups, maybe Kittle will fall out and someone like Goddard or Schultz will sneak in. Speaking of Goddard, I have Goddard here at 6. Last year, after Ertz got traded, Goddard was a monster. I think he was doing well with Ertz there, but he really took off after the amount of passes getting thrown his way. It's going to be interesting to see because now A.J. Brown got traded to the Eagles, so obviously A.J. Brown's going to get his. So it's going to be interesting to see how Goddard does. I'm not too worried. I feel like A.J. Brown and Goddard can both thrive at the same time. Especially Jalen Reagor also got traded. Miles Sanders is just seeing his role diminish more and more every year. So I'm not too worried about Goddard or A.J. Brown. David Njoku is another tight end that I feel like is a big sleeper pick, especially in Cleveland with Brissett as a quarterback. Up until Deshaun Watson comes back, at the very least, I feel like Cleveland's going to try to keep it very simple for Brissett. A lot of running plays for Chubb, a lot of checkdowns for Hunt. Njoku is a pretty fast tight end who's going to get a lot of short receptions as well. So I really think Njoku's play style really benefits Brissett, and I feel like they're going to work with that and try to make that happen just to make life easier for Jacoby. Dawson Knox, he would be... I could see him also kind of going up. I feel like the top 10 every week will be about these 10 guys. Maybe Pat will be in 1 week, Ertz won't be in, Hunter Henry, Njoku, Cole, I could see it. But for the most part, I feel like these 6 to 15, I can see them being these guys every week, just in some variation. Speaking of Dawson Knox, he's in the high-powered offense, so I give him the edge over these guys for sure. Dalton Schultz, another tight end that Dak is just going to love throwing to. TJ Hawkinson with the Lions we just spoke about only have DeAndre Swift and St. Brown as their other options offensively. Zach Ertz, I feel like, will be a big part of the offense up until DeAndre Hopkins comes back. That's why I have him a little bit higher. Like, I have him higher than Schultz this week, just for that reason. Once Hopkins comes back or Marquise Brown really settles in, I can see Ertz really falling. In terms of half PPR and PPR, I think the rankings mostly are the same, just at the end where they change, so I'm not really going to touch on those. But let's move on to defense. I have the 49ers are the best defense this week against Chicago. Mooney is still pretty inexperienced. I could see 49ers defense. Well, I could see 49ers offense really chewing the clock away and not really giving much time to the Bears to even put up any offense. But it's a great matchup for the 49ers. I love that. Colts against Houston, another great matchup for the Colts. Saints against Atlanta, playing against Mariota. You gotta love that. Denver against Seattle, playing against Geno Smith. Baltimore versus New Jersey. Joe Flacco starting here, which is a boost over Zach Wilson, but this is also, their offense isn't as proven. There is more. There is Breece Hall, Michael Carter, and they could put up some points. They have the potential to bring down Baltimore a lot if they really get going. But for now, I have Baltimore pretty high up. Tampa Bay, if this game turns into a shootout like it did last year, that could be problematic. Buffalo, I have them a little bit lower this week just because they play the Rams. Cincinnati against Pittsburgh. This is also a pretty good matchup for Cincinnati. Wait, is Mariota the Pittsburgh quarterback? Hold on. Oh my god. What team is he on? No, he's the Falcons. Yeah, I was right. Wait, who's the Pittsburgh quarterback? Trubisky, that's what it was. Okay. Alright, so moving back. Playing against Trubisky, that's always pretty good. So I could see them having a good game as well. The Eagles, also, since they played Detroit, like I said, the only offensive weapons are St. Brown, DeAndre Swift, and Hawkinson. So I could see Philly kind of giving them trouble. But this is, again, just like the Jets. Detroit has a better opportunity to ruin Philadelphia's day offensively, so I have them a little bit lower. Another defense I wanted to talk about was the Cowboys. Where are they? So I have the Cowboys at 23, just because they played Tampa Bay, obviously. But for the year, I kind of like the Cowboys defense. I really like Saints defense a lot. I like Colts defense. But for the Cowboys this week, Tampa Bay has a really weak front line this year. So if Cowboys could really take advantage of that and not give Brady really time to throw, that could be pretty good turnout for the Cowboys. But we'll see. It's Tom Brady, so you know I never would like to bet against him. And I think we're gonna end it there. I don't want to get into flex because we're gonna be here all day. Same thing with kickers. But I will leave the link in the description down below, just so you could check out, kind of go through it, see where your players rank. Actually, let me know down below how do you feel going into week 1 of your fantasy football matchups. And please, if you guys do enjoy the video, please leave a like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.